When my son Bradley called me dead weight and demanded I move to a nursing home so he could sell my house to fund his failing startup, he had no idea he was trying to manipulate Catherine Kate Morrison, the former chief financial officer of Morrison Industries, current board member of 3 Fortune 500 companies, and the woman who secretly owned 78% of his business, held the mortgages on both his houses, and could financially destroy his entire entitled existence with a single phone call to my attorney. Before I walk you through how I orchestrated the most legendary financial reality check in family history, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I'm sharing the story of how a helpless widow, being pressured to sign over her assets, turned out to be a retired federal judge, and what happened when her ungrateful children discovered she'd been recording every conversation for evidence. The systematic disrespect and financial manipulation that would ultimately expose my son's true character began on a gray November morning in 2024. Exactly 18 months after my husband Robert's passing had temporarily transformed me from Catherine Kate Morrison, CEO and majority shareholder of a multi-million-dollar family business empire, into what appeared to be just another grieving 70-year-old widow struggling with loneliness and the overwhelming task of managing a large estate in the affluent suburb of Westbrook Hills, Connecticut. The transformation wasn't intentional, at least not initially. The grief that consumed me after losing Robert was devastating and genuine. 45 years of marriage, business partnership, and shared dreams don't simply disappear because the funeral ends and the sympathy cards stop arriving. Robert and I had built everything together. Our marriage, our family, our business empire, and our legacy. When he died suddenly of a heart attack while reviewing quarterly reports in his home office, part of me died with him, leaving behind a woman who genuinely questioned whether she had the strength or desire to continue managing the empire we'd built together. But what my son Bradley interpreted as cognitive decline and financial helplessness was actually strategic withdrawal from active business management, while I processed my loss and made careful decisions about succession planning, asset distribution, and the family legacy that Robert and I had spent decades building together. The confusion he observed during family dinners, the apparent overwhelm when discussing financial matters, and the frequent requests for his help with basic business coordination were actually careful observation of his character and systematic documentation of his true priority. The business empire that Bradley assumed would automatically become his inheritance was far more complex and valuable than he had ever imagined. Morrison Industries, the commercial real estate development company that Robert and I had founded in 1982, now owned properties across New England with a combined value exceeding $150 million. Our portfolio included shopping centers in Hartford and New Haven, office complexes in Boston and Providence, luxury residential developments throughout Connecticut's Gold Coast, and industrial properties that generated millions in annual rental income from Fortune 500 tenants who had signed long-term leases during the economic expansion of the past decade. Morrison Capital Management, the investment firm we'd established in 1995, managed over $200 million in assets for high-net-worth clients throughout New England. Our client base included old money families from Greenwich and Newport, tech entrepreneurs from Boston's Route 128 corridor, and hedge fund managers who trusted our conservative investment philosophy and consistent returns that had weathered every market downturn since the dot-com crash. The management fees alone generated enough income to support multiple families in luxury, while our investment performance had earned us recognition in financial publications and invitations to exclusive investment conferences worldwide. Morrison Family Holding, the umbrella corporation that owned everything else, included real estate investments in Florida and California, a private equity portfolio with stakes in 12 different companies, municipal bonds worth millions, and what Robert used to call our legacy assets, the art collection, antique furniture, jewelry, and classic cars that we'd accumulated during our travels and business success. The family compound itself, sitting on 12 acres of pristine Connecticut countryside, was worth at least $8 million, with its main house, guest cottage, pool, and private tennis court, creating a family retreat that had hosted senators, business leaders, and foreign dignitaries during our most successful year. What Bradley never understood, because Robert and I had never felt the need to explain our financial structure to our adult children, was that every aspect of his comfortable lifestyle had been funded by family business success. His Stanford education, his law degree from Columbia, his first apartment in Manhattan, his wedding to Sarah, the down payment on his house in Fairfield County, and the seed money for his tech startup had all come from Morrison family businesses that he had never worked for, contributed to, or shown genuine interest in understanding beyond their ability to fund his entrepreneurial dreams and upper-class lifestyle expectations. The tech startup that Bradley had launched 3 years earlier, Cloud Vault Solutions, specialized in data storage and cybersecurity services for small businesses. The company had shown initial promise, landing several significant contracts and attracting attention from venture capital firms during its first year of operation. However, Bradley's lack of business experience, combined with his tendency to overspend on office space, marketing campaign and employee perks, had gradually transformed what should have been a profitable venture into a cash-hungry operation that burned through investor funding, while struggling to achieve the growth projections that Bradley had promised during his enthusiastic pitch presentation. The irony that Bradley remained completely unaware of was that Morrison Capital Management had been CloudVault's largest investor from the beginning. When Bradley had approached us for family support during his initial funding, Robert and I had structured the investment through our firm rather than as a personal loan, ensuring that we maintained majority ownership while allowing Bradley to maintain the appearance of independent entrepreneurship that was so important to his self-image and professional reputation among his Stanford classmates and Columbia Law School friends. The $2.3 million that Morrison Capital had invested in CloudVault represented 78% ownership of the company, a fact that Bradley had somehow overlooked or misunderstood during the legal paperwork phase of the investment process. His focus had been entirely on securing funding for his vision rather than understanding the ownership implications of accepting family money through proper business channels. The quarterly reports that he submitted to Morrison Capital were professionally prepared, but revealed consistent losses, increasing expenses, and ambitious expansion plans that required additional funding to maintain operations and employee salary. The real estate portfolio that supported Bradley's lifestyle was equally invisible to him. The house in Fairfield County that he and Sarah considered their family home was actually owned by Morrison Family Holdings and provided to them through a lease agreement that Bradley treated as family accommodation rather than recognizing the fair market value of $1,000 monthly rent that we had waived as family support. The vacation property in the Hamptons that they used every summer was similarly owned by our family business and provided without charge, despite comparable properties renting for $15,000 per week during peak season. The mortgages that Bradley assumed were traditional bank financing were actually held by Morrison Capital Management through our real estate investment division. When Bradley and Sarah had purchased their primary residence 5 years earlier, they had qualified for bank finance, but Robert and I had quietly purchased the mortgage from the originating bank, allowing us to provide favorable terms while maintaining control over the property's financing structure. The same arrangement applied to their vacation property, creating a financial situation where Bradley was essentially paying mortgage payments to his own family business, while remaining completely unaware of the ownership structure. The monthly expenses that Bradley took for granted, his children's private school tuition, Sarah's membership at the country club, their family vacations to Europe and the Caribbean, the luxury vehicles they drove, were all subsidized through family business coordination that he had never questioned or investigated. The tuition payments appeared to come from an education trust fund that Robert and I had established, but were actually funded by Morrison Industries' annual profits. The country club membership was a corporate benefit provided through Morrison Family Holdings' entertainment and networking budget. The vacation expenses were processed through Morrison Capital's client entertainment accounts, and the luxury vehicles were leased through our corporate fleet management system. The credit cards that Bradley and Sarah used for daily expenses were corporate accounts tied to Morrison Family Holdings, providing them with unlimited spending capability while generating detailed transaction records that I reviewed monthly to understand their lifestyle patterns and financial priorities. Their mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance premiums, and utility bills were all automatically coordinated through Morrison Capital's financial management services, creating the appearance of independent financial management, while ensuring that family business resources supported their entire lifestyle without their conscious awareness or gratitude. The business consulting arrangement that Bradley had established with Morrison Industries provided him with additional income that he treated as earned compensation for strategic advice. Despite the fact that his legal expertise in intellectual property law had limited relevance to our real estate and investment operations, the monthly consulting fees of Morrison were structured to provide Bradley with additional income while maintaining the fiction that he was contributing value to family business operations, rather than simply receiving disguised family support that preserved his professional pride and self-image as an independent entrepreneur. The investment opportunities that Bradley occasionally discussed with us, including real estate ventures and stock market speculation, were always funded through Morrison Capital's investment portfolio, rather than requiring him to risk his own capital or develop independent funding sources. His successful investments were celebrated as personal achievement, while his losses were absorbed by family business resources, without affecting his lifestyle or financial security. This arrangement had created a psychological environment where Bradley felt entitled to family financial support while maintaining the self-image of an independent business leader whose success was the result of his own talents and decision-making capability. The family financial meetings that we held monthly at the Westbrook Hills estate were designed to keep Bradley informed about family business performance, while gradually preparing him for eventual leadership responsibility. However, Bradley's participation in these meetings had always focused on distribution strategies and inheritance planning rather than operational management or strategic development. His questions typically centered on asset valuation and timeline for control transfer rather than demonstrating interest in the business principles and management strategies that had created the family wealth he was so eager to inherit. The estate planning documents that Robert and I had developed included comprehensive succession plans that accounted for various scenarios, including our deaths, disability, or retirement from active business management. However, these plans included performance requirements and character assessments that needed to be satisfied before control transfer could occur. Bradley's assumption that inheritance was automatic reflected his fundamental misunderstanding of our values and expectations for family business leadership, which prioritized competence and character over bloodline entitlement. The legal structure that protected family assets included multiple layers of corporate organization, trust arrangements, and fiduciary responsibilities that ensured business continuity while preventing impulsive or incompetent management decisions from destroying decades of careful development and growth. Bradley's legal education should have provided him with understanding of these protective measures, but his focus on intellectual property law rather than corporate governance had left him surprisingly ignorant about the business structures that supported his own financial security. The professional relationships that Robert and I had maintained throughout our business careers included attorneys, accountants, investment advisors, and board members who understood our values and shared our commitment to responsible asset management and family legacy preservation. These relationships represented decades of trust and mutual respect that could be activated quickly when circumstances required professional coordination or legal protection of family interests against internal threats or external challenge. My decision to step back from day-to-day business operations after Robert's death and allow our longtime business manager, James Patterson, to handle routine coordination had created exactly the kind of apparent vulnerability that Bradley needed to justify his systematic campaign to gain control over family assets, while positioning his financial demands as helping Mom manage her overwhelming responsibilities, rather than recognizing the calculated exploitation and emotional manipulation that characterized his approach to our relationship. James Patterson, who had worked with Morrison Industries for over 15 years, understood the family dynamics and business complexities better than anyone outside our immediate family. His MBA from Wharton and previous experience managing family office operations for high net worth clients had prepared him perfectly for coordinating the Morrison business empire during my period of grief and strategic withdrawal from active management. More importantly, James understood my actual capabilities and was positioned to document Bradley's behavior and recommendations for future reference and decision-making about succession planning and family asset distribution. The apparent confusion about business matters that Bradley observed during our interactions was actually systematic testing of his character and priorities. When I asked for his help understanding investment statements or real estate documents, I was evaluating whether he would provide honest advice that prioritized family welfare, or whether he would attempt to manipulate my apparent vulnerability for personal gain. When I expressed concern about managing complex financial responsibilities, I was observing whether he would offer genuine support or use my anxiety as justification for transferring control to his management. The request for Bradley's assistance with basic financial coordination were designed to reveal his true motivations and assess his readiness for family business leadership. A worthy heir would have responded with patience, education, and gradual skill development that prepared me for continued independent management. Instead, Bradley's responses consistently emphasized my limitations and his superior capabilities, while building justification for immediate control transfer that would serve his startup funding needs, rather than supporting my recovery and continued independence. The systematic documentation of Bradley's character development that I maintained throughout this period included detailed records of our conversations, observations of his priorities and decision-making pattern, and comprehensive assessment of his readiness for family business leadership and asset management responsibility. This evaluation process was becoming increasingly clear as his demands escalated and his true motivations emerged through his treatment of my vulnerability and grief. The emotional manipulation that Bradley employed during our family interactions included systematic emphasis on my age and limitations, strategic reminders about the burden of managing complex business operation, and apparent concern for my welfare that masked his eagerness to gain control over family assets for his own purposes. His presentation of nursing home placement as a caring solution, rather than asset seizure, demonstrated sophisticated manipulation that prioritized his financial needs over my dignity and independence. The financial pressures that Bradley faced from CloudVault's mounting losses had created desperation that gradually overwhelmed whatever family loyalty and respect he had previously demonstrated. The monthly cash flow requirements for employee salaries, office rent, and operational expenses were consuming his available credit and threatening the business reputation he had worked to establish among his professional network and potential investors. This foundation of systematic observation, hidden asset control, and careful character assessment created the perfect environment for Bradley's ultimate display of disrespect and entitlement that would trigger the most comprehensive financial education and reality check that any ungrateful heir had ever received about the difference between inheritance expectations and actual earned authority over family assets and business empire control. The morning that everything changed, Bradley had arrived at the Westbrook Hills estate with Sarah and their financial advisor David Chen for what he had described as an important family meeting about Mom's future. The professional presentation and coordinated approach suggested systematic planning rather than spontaneous concern, revealing the calculated nature of their intervention and asset seizure strategy that would ultimately expose their true priorities and complete lack of understanding about who they were attempting to manipulate and control. The family meeting that Bradley had arranged for that fateful November morning revealed itself to be a carefully orchestrated intervention designed to present my apparent cognitive decline and financial incapacity as medical necessity, requiring immediate family intervention and asset protection, rather than recognizing the calculated manipulation and emotional exploitation that characterized their systematic approach to gaining control over Morrison family wealth and business operations. Driving his black BMW X7, a vehicle that he believed he owned outright, but was actually leased through Morrison Family Holdings' corporate fleet management program, with monthly payments automatically deducted from our business accounts without his knowledge or conscious awareness. The precision of his timing and the formal business attire he wore suggested this wasn't a casual family visit, but a professional presentation that had been planned and rehearsed to maximize psychological impact while minimizing my ability to resist their recommendation and asset transfer demand. Sarah accompanied him, wearing a navy business suit that I recognized as expensive designer wear from her recent shopping trip to Manhattan, a trip that had been charged the Morrison Family Holdings corporate credit card that she used for all personal expenses, while believing it was connected to Bradley's independent income, rather than understanding the family business subsidy that made her lifestyle possible. Her professional appearance and serious demeanor indicated that she understood the significance of this meeting and had been thoroughly briefed on their strategy for presenting their case and overcoming any resistance I might offer to their proposal. David Chen, their financial advisor from Meridian Wealth Management, completed the intervention team with his leather portfolio, tablet computer, and the kind of professional gravitas that suggested expensive consulting fees and sophisticated financial planning expertise. What Bradley and Sarah didn't realize was that David Chen was actually a junior associate at a mid-tier financial planning firm, whose primary clients were upper-middle-class professionals rather than high-net-worth families like ours. His involvement in their financial planning represented Bradley's fundamental misunderstanding of the resources and expertise required for managing substantial family wealth and complex business operations. The seating arrangement that they established in my living room, Bradley and Sarah on the sofa facing me, David Chen, in the adjacent chair with his materials spread on the coffee table, created a confrontational dynamic that positioned me as the subject of their evaluation, rather than the family matriarch deserving respect and consultation about decisions affecting my life and assets. Their coordinated positioning and professional presentation revealed systematic planning that prioritized control and intimidation over family collaboration and respect for my autonomy and decision-making authority. "Mom," Bradley began, using the tone of voice typically reserved for explaining complex concepts to confused elderly individuals, "we've been talking with David about your situation, and we're all concerned about the burden you're carrying trying to manage Dad's business empire all by yourself. It's too much for anyone, especially someone who's dealing with grief and trying to adjust to life without Dad's support and guidance." The patronizing tone and systematic emphasis on my limitations revealed Bradley's fundamental misunderstanding of both my capabilities and the actual business management structure that James Patterson and I had maintained throughout my period of strategic withdrawal from day-to-day operation. His presentation of concern masked clear eagerness to position himself as necessary savior, while building justification for immediate control transfer that would serve his financial needs, rather than my welfare or family business continuity. Sarah nodded sympathetically, adding her own layer of emotional manipulation to their coordinated presentation. "Kate, we can see how overwhelmed you've been since Robert passed. The house is so big and empty, and managing all those business responsibilities must feel impossible. We just want to help you transition to a situation where you can focus on enjoying your retirement without all this stress and complexity weighing you down every day." The psychological manipulation embedded in Sarah's comments included systematic emphasis on my isolation and helplessness while presenting asset seizure as caring liberation, rather than recognizing the financial exploitation and family home theft that characterized their actual proposal. Her concern for my stress conveniently ignored the reality that my business operations were running smoothly under James Patterson's management while generating substantial profits that supported their entire lifestyle without their knowledge or appreciation. David Chen opened his portfolio and spread several documents across the coffee table, with professional flourish designed to demonstrate expertise and create authority for his recommendation. "Morrison, I've prepared a comprehensive analysis of your current financial situation, based on the information that Bradley and Sarah have provided. The complexity of your holdings and the administrative burden of managing multiple business entities creates significant liability exposure and operational inefficiency that could be resolved through strategic restructuring and professional management coordination." The financial analysis that David Chen presented was based entirely on incomplete information that Bradley had provided, creating a fundamentally flawed assessment that ignored the actual business structure, profitability metric, strategic positioning that Robert and I had developed over decades of careful planning and market position. His recommendations reflected his limited experience with high net worth estate planning, while demonstrating complete ignorance about the Morrison business empire's actual value, complexity, and operational requirement. The real estate portfolio alone, David continued, consulting his tablet for dramatic effect, represents a management nightmare that requires constant attention to tenant relations, property maintenance, market analysis, and regulatory compliance. The investment management responsibilities for Morrison Capital's client accounts add another layer of fiduciary obligation and professional liability that could expose your personal assets to legal claims and financial losses if anything goes wrong. The systematic misrepresentation of business operations as overwhelming burdens, rather than profitable enterprises, revealed David Chen's fundamental ignorance about successful business management and his assumption that elderly individuals automatically lose capability and decision-making authority regardless of their actual competence and professional experience. His emphasis on liability and complexity conveniently supported Bradley's agenda, while ignoring the substantial income and asset appreciation that our businesses generated annually. Bradley leaned forward with apparent sincerity, his voice taking on the earnest tone he had perfected during law school presentations and business pitch meetings. "Mom, what we're proposing isn't about taking control away from you, it's about giving you the freedom to enjoy your life without being tied down to business responsibilities that Dad always handled. You've earned the right to retire and let the next generation manage the family legacy while you focus on traveling, spending time with grandchildren, and doing all the things you've postponed during your business building year." The manipulation strategy that Bradley employed included reframing asset seizure as gift-giving, while positioning his inexperience and financial desperation as beneficial family leadership that would improve rather than destroy the business empire that Robert and I had spent decades building. His promise of travel and leisure time conveniently ignored my genuine love for business strategy and my desire to maintain control over family assets until I could be confident about succession planning and airworthiness. "The nursing home we've identified," Sarah added, producing a glossy brochure from her purse, "is absolutely beautiful. Sunset Manor in Greenwich has everything: fine dining, social activities, medical care, and a lovely garden, where you can relax without worrying about property maintenance or household management. You'd have your own apartment, but with all the support services you need as you get older." Nursing home proposal represented the ultimate expression of their manipulation strategy: complete removal from family property, while gaining total control over family assets through durable power of attorney arrangements that would position Bradley as financial decision-maker and asset manager. The beautiful brochure and emphasis on luxury amenities masked the reality that nursing home placement would effectively eliminate my ability to monitor business operations or prevent Bradley from destroying decades of careful business development and financial planning. David Chen produced additional documents with professional ceremony, spreading contracts and financial projections across the coffee table like a magician, revealing the climax of an elaborate trick. "I've prepared preliminary paperwork for transferring business management to Bradley, establishing professional property management for the real estate portfolio, and restructuring the investment accounts for simplified administration. The transition could be completed within 30 days, allowing you to move to Sunset Manor before the holidays and start fresh in the new year." The speed of their proposed timeline revealed the urgency that drove their manipulation strategy. Bradley's mounting financial pressures from CloudVault's losses required immediate access to family resources to prevent business collapse and personal financial catastrophe. Their 30-day timeline was designed to prevent me from conducting independent legal consultation or developing alternative strategies that might preserve my control while addressing any legitimate concerns about business continuity and management succession. "The financial benefits," Bradley continued, consulting David's projections with apparent expertise, "are substantial. Professional management will improve operational efficiency while reducing your personal liability exposure. The nursing home costs are completely manageable given the family's financial resources, and you'll have access to all the medical care and social activities that will keep you healthy and engaged for years to come. The cynical calculation embedded in Bradley's financial presentation included systematic emphasis on my care costs, while ignoring the millions in annual income that our businesses generated. Income that would fund his startup losses while supporting Sarah's lifestyle and David Chen's management fees. His concern for my health and engagement conveniently supported their asset seizure strategy while positioning nursing home placement as investment in my welfare rather than their financial convenience. Sarah reached across the coffee table to touch my hand with practiced sympathy, her voice taking on the gentle tone typically used with confused elderly individuals who require careful handling and emotional management. "Kate, we know this is a big decision, but we've thought through every detail to make sure you're comfortable and well cared for. Bradley has the legal expertise to manage the business transition, and David has the financial background to optimize the investment strategy. You'd finally be free from all these responsibilities that are clearly becoming too much for you to handle alone." The systematic infantilization that characterized Sarah's approach included assumptions about my cognitive capacity and decision-making authority, while positioning their inexperience and self-interest as superior alternatives to my decades of successful business management and financial planning. Her emphasis on my limitations conveniently ignored the reality that James Patterson and I were managing business operations more efficiently than ever while generating record profits and maintaining excellent client relationships. Bradley produced a thick folder of legal documents from his briefcase, spreading power of attorney forms, business transfer agreements, and property management contracts across the already crowded coffee table with professional confidence that suggested months of preparation and legal consultation. "I've had our attorneys prepare all the necessary paperwork to make this transition as smooth as possible. The legal structure protects your interests while ensuring efficient management and family business continuity." The legal documents that Bradley presented had been prepared by his own law firm rather than the estate planning attorneys who understood Morrison family business structure and succession planning requirements. His use of our attorneys implied family legal representation when the documents actually served his interests rather than mine, creating potential conflicts of interest and fiduciary violations that demonstrated his willingness to prioritize personal gain over family welfare and legal propriety. David Chen consulted his tablet with dramatic flourish, producing financial projections that painted a compelling picture of improved performance under professional management and streamlined operation. The preliminary analysis suggests that strategic restructuring could improve annual returns by 15 to 20%, while reducing administrative overhead and regulatory compliance costs. Bradley's legal expertise combined with professional financial management creates synergies that benefit everyone involved. The financial projections that David Chen presented were based on theoretical models rather than actual analysis of Morrison business operations, creating artificially optimistic scenarios that ignored the complexity and specialized knowledge required for successful real estate development and investment management. His promise of improved returns through simplification revealed fundamental misunderstanding of our business model and client relationships that required personal attention and long-term strategic thinking rather than generic professional management. "The timeline is flexible," Bradley assured me, consulting his watch with apparent concern for my comfort and decision-making process. "We don't want to rush you into anything, but David's analysis suggests that delaying the transition could create unnecessary tax complications and market exposure that might affect the family's financial position. The sooner we implement these changes, the better protected everyone will be." The artificial time pressure that Bradley created through David's analysis was designed to prevent me from seeking independent legal counsel or conducting thorough evaluation of their proposals. His emphasis on tax complications and market exposure was particularly manipulative, since business structure already included comprehensive tax planning and risk management strategies that had been developed by actual experts rather than junior financial advisors with limited experience managing complex family wealth. Sarah opened the Sunset Manor brochure with enthusiastic energy, pointing to photographs of elegant apartments, fine dining facilities, and social activities that promised comfort and engagement for discerning seniors who valued quality lifestyle and comprehensive care services. "Look at these beautiful rooms, Kate. You'd have your own kitchen if you wanted to cook, but there's also restaurant-quality dining and room service whenever you prefer. The social calendar is amazing: book clubs, art classes, bridge tournaments, and educational lectures from visiting professors. The systematic presentation of nursing home amenities as luxury lifestyle enhancement, rather than institutional placement, revealed Sarah's sophisticated understanding of psychological manipulation and her ability to reframe elderly care as premium service, rather than family abandonment. Her emphasis on intellectual activities and social engagement was designed to address my education and professional background, while concealing the reality that nursing home placement would effectively eliminate my ability to maintain business oversight and family asset control. Bradley leaned back in his chair with apparent satisfaction, surveying the documents and materials spread across the coffee table like a general reviewing battle plans, before launching a carefully coordinated attack. "Mom, we know this represents a major life change, but we're confident that this transition will benefit everyone. You'll have security, care, and freedom from business stress, while the family assets will be professionally managed for optimal performance and long-term growth." The systematic manipulation that Bradley employed throughout their presentation included consistent emphasis on my limitations and their superior capabilities, while positioning their financial desperation and inexperience as beneficial family leadership. His confidence about optimal performance and long-term growth was particularly ironic, since CloudVault's consistent losses demonstrated his actual business management capabilities and decision-making judgment. David Chen closed his portfolio with professional ceremony, apparently satisfied that their presentation had been comprehensive and persuasive. "Mrs. Morrison, I recommend taking a few days to review these materials and consider the substantial benefits that this transition would provide. The legal and financial structure that Bradley and I have developed represents months of careful planning, designed to protect your interests while optimizing family wealth management for the next generation." The recommendation for quick decision-making disguised as careful consideration was designed to create appearance of thorough deliberation while maintaining pressure for rapid acceptance of their proposal. David's emphasis on protecting my interests while optimizing family wealth conveniently ignored the reality that their strategy would destroy my financial security while funding Bradley's failing business ventures through systematic liquidation of profitable family assets. Sarah gathered the Sunset Manor materials with apparent reluctance, as if she regretted ending such a pleasant discussion about my future care and lifestyle enhancement. "Kate, we just want you to know how much we love you and how committed we are to making sure you're happy and well cared for. This isn't about us, it's about giving you the peace of mind and security that you deserve after all the years you've spent working and worrying about business responsibilities." The emotional manipulation that Sarah employed through expressions of love and concern was designed to make resistance appear ungrateful and selfish, while positioning their asset seizure strategy as generous family care, rather than recognizing the financial exploitation and elder abuse that characterized their actual proposal. Her emphasis on my deserving peace and security conveniently ignored my desire to maintain control over assets I had helped build and my concern about family business continuity under incompetent management. Bradley stood and straightened his tie with apparent satisfaction, clearly believing that their presentation had been successful and that my apparent confusion and overwhelm indicated acceptance of their proposals and timeline for implementation. "Mom, why don't you take a couple of days to think everything over, and then we can meet again to finalize the details and begin the transition process." David has already identified the best management companies for the real estate portfolio, and I've spoken with several investment advisors about optimizing the financial accounts for simplified administration. The assumption that I needed time to think everything over, rather than see independent legal counsel, revealed Bradley's fundamental misunderstanding of my actual capabilities, and his confidence that their manipulation strategy had been effective in presenting their proposals as beneficial rather than exploitative. His advanced coordination with management companies and investment advisors demonstrated systematic planning for asset seizure, rather than family consultation about succession planning and business continuity. The systematic nature of their manipulation became even more apparent as they prepared to leave, with each team member playing their assigned role in building pressure for acceptance, while creating appearance of caring family intervention, rather than calculated financial exploitation. Their coordination, professional presentation, and comprehensive planning revealed months of preparation for this moment, when they would finally gain control over Morrison family wealth, while eliminating my ability to resist or seek alternative solutions. As they gathered their materials and prepared to leave, I maintained the confused and overwhelmed persona that had been so effective in revealing their true characters and motivation. My apparent gratitude for their concern and promise to consider their proposals carefully reinforced their confidence that their manipulation had been successful, while buying me time to coordinate my own strategic response to their systematic exploitation and elder abuse. The irony that none of them understood was that their entire financial lives, Bradley's startup funding, Sarah's lifestyle, David's consulting fee, and even the BMW that Bradley drove to our meeting, were all dependent on the Morrison family businesses that they were so eager to take control of and restructure, according to their inexperienced judgment and self-serving priorities. The legal documents they had left for my review were already being analyzed by my actual estate planning attorneys. The financial projections David had prepared were being evaluated by my real investment advisor, and the nursing home proposal was being investigated by private investigators, who would provide comprehensive background information about Sunset Manor's ownership, management, and actual quality of care, rather than relying on marketing brochures and sales presentations. But what Bradley, Sarah, and David Chen could never have imagined was that the confused elderly woman they were manipulating was actually documenting every aspect of their exploitation strategy, while preparing the most comprehensive financial education and reality check that any ungrateful family members had received about the difference between inheritance expectations and actual earned authority over family assets and business empire control. The foundation they had just established for their ultimate humiliation and financial destruction was more solid than any business plan they had ever developed, and the consequences of their manipulation would prove more devastating than any market crash or business failure they could possibly imagine. The vulnerable elderly widow persona that I had unconsciously perfected during my grief period required no conscious acting on my part. The emotional devastation and temporary disorientation that followed Robert's death provided such a convincing foundation for apparent cognitive decline and financial helplessness that even my own sharp business instincts were temporarily overwhelmed by legitimate loss and the profound adjustment required when losing a life partner who had shared every major decision for 45 years. The physical transformation that supported my vulnerable presentation began each morning with the careful selection of clothing that prioritized comfort and ease over professional appearance and personal style. The soft cashmere sweaters in muted colors that I wore during family visits, purchased originally for their therapeutic texture during my darkest grief periods, created the perfect image of an elderly woman whose wardrobe choices had been reduced to emotional comfort rather than business presentation or social engagement. The comfortable slip-on shoes with orthopedic support that replaced my usual professional heels, combined with the loose-fitting slacks and simple cardigans that I layered for warmth, reinforced the impression of someone whose daily routine had been simplified to accommodate physical limitations and reduced activity level. The walking pattern that I had developed during my recovery from grief included a slight hesitation that reflected genuine uncertainty about my future direction, occasional use of furniture support when standing or moving through rooms, systematic attention to handrails and stable surfaces that demonstrated realistic age-related caution without appearing dramatically impaired. My careful approach to stairs, deliberate movement through the house, and occasional requests for assistance with tasks that required reaching or coordination created comprehensive evidence of physical limitation, while maintaining complete authenticity about the genuine challenges that accompany aging and emotional recovery. The speech patterns that characterized my communication during family interactions included occasional word-finding difficulties that reflected genuine grief-related cognitive fog, systematic pauses to organize thoughts before discussing complex topics, and the kind of communication hesitation that convinced Bradley and Sarah, they were witnessing age-related cognitive decline rather than temporary emotional processing challenges that would improve with time and appropriate support. My systematic requests for clarification about complex business discussions, apparent difficulty following rapid financial conversations, and preference for simple, direct communication created compelling evidence of cognitive vulnerability while reinforcing their assumptions about elderly mental processing decline and business management incapacity. The memory inconsistencies that I occasionally displayed during family visits included apparent confusion about recent business decisions, systematic difficulty recalling specific appointment times and meeting schedules, and the kind of cognitive processing challenges that convinced Bradley and Sarah they were witnessing grief-related mental decline rather than strategic information management and careful observation of their responses to my apparent limitation. My systematic questions about previous family conversations, apparent confusion about business coordination detail, and requests for written reminders about important dates and decisions created comprehensive evidence of memory processing limitations, while building perfect justification for their increased involvement and oversight recommendations. The medication management routine that Bradley and Sarah observed during family dinners provided systematic evidence of both health complexity and cognitive processing limitations that convinced them they were dealing with a woman whose medical coordination was becoming too challenging for independent management, while requiring comprehensive family oversight and professional assistance. The weekly pill organizer that sat prominently on my kitchen counter filled with prescriptions for blood pressure management, cholesterol control and anxiety medication related to grief process alongside detailed instruction sheets about timing and interactions, created perfect evidence of medical complexity while demonstrating the kind of health maintenance challenges that elderly individuals face when managing multiple chronic conditions and emotional recovery requirements. The apparent confusion about prescription coordination that I displayed whenever Bradley offered assistance included systematic questions about drug interactions and side effects, apparent anxiety about dosing accuracy and medical compliance, the kind of healthcare navigation challenges that convinced him my medical management was becoming too complex for independent coordination, while requiring family involvement and professional medical supervision. My systematic requests for clarification about medication instruction, apparent difficulty understanding dosing schedules, and preference for family member involvement in medical appointment coordination created compelling evidence of healthcare dependency while reinforcing assumptions about cognitive processing limitations and medical decision-making challenge. The financial management approach that I demonstrated throughout my daily routines included careful attention to expense tracking and budget management, systematic organization of bills and financial documents, and the kind of money management that suggested both cognitive processing challenge and anxiety about financial coordination that convinced Bradley and Sarah they were dealing with someone whose financial decision-making was becoming increasingly challenging while requiring family oversight and professional assistance. The envelope system that I used for organizing monthly household expenses, combined with my handwritten budget notebook and systematic tracking of grocery purchases and utility payments, created evidence of financial management difficulty while demonstrating the kind of careful coordination that elderly individuals employ when cognitive processing changes require simplified systems and enhanced organization. The banking coordination evidence that Bradley and Sarah observed during our shared errands included systematic preference for in-person transactions over electronic banking systems, apparent confusion about automated teller machines and online financial management, and the kind of financial institution navigation that suggested both technology limitation and cognitive processing challenges, rather than deliberate avoidance of electronic systems that could be monitored or manipulated by family members seeking financial information and account access. My systematic requests for paper bank statements, preference for speaking directly with teller staff, and apparent anxiety about electronic security and online fraud created compelling evidence of elderly financial management limitations, while positioning family members as necessary assistance providers for complex banking coordination and financial institution communication. The technology limitations that I displayed whenever Bradley or Sarah attempted to help me with modern devices included apparent confusion about smartphone operations and basic app functionality, systematic difficulty with television remote controls and entertainment system coordination, and the kind of digital literacy challenges that convinced them my cognitive processing had declined significantly while my learning capability had been reduced to the point where technology assistance was becoming a family responsibility rather than individual capability development. My systematic requests for repeated explanations about basic device operations, apparent anxiety about internet security and electronic privacy protection, and preference for traditional communication methods over digital coordination created comprehensive evidence of technology dependency, while positioning family members as essential facilitators for modern communication and information access. The household organization patterns that both Bradley and Sarah observed during family visits included apparent difficulty maintaining systematic storage systems and domestic coordination, occasional confusion about item locations and household management routine, and the kind of domestic coordination challenges that suggested cognitive processing limitations rather than temporary disruption caused by grief-related disorganization and the emotional difficulty of maintaining Robert's organized systems without his daily presence and coordination assistant. My systematic requests for assistance, finding basic household items, apparent confusion about storage locations and organizational systems, and difficulty maintaining household coordination and domestic management, created additional evidence of cognitive limitation, while providing perfect justification for increased family involvement and household oversight coordination. The cooking and meal preparation challenges that I demonstrated included apparent difficulty following complex recipes and coordinating multiple cooking tasks, systematic preference for simple food preparation and basic meal planning, and the kind of culinary coordination limitations that suggested both cognitive processing challenges and physical coordination difficulty, rather than strategic meal simplification designed to accommodate my reduced appetite during grief recovery and my preference for complicated dining experiences. My apparent confusion about modern kitchen appliances and automated cooking systems, systematic requests for assistance with meal coordination and grocery plan, and preference for pre-prepared foods and simple cooking methods, created evidence of domestic capability decline, while positioning family members as necessary assistance providers for basic nutrition management and household food coordination. The social interaction patterns that characterized my behavior during the limited visitor interactions that occurred included apparent difficulty following complex conversations and multi-topic discussions, systematic confusion about current events and recent political development, and the kind of social processing challenges that suggested cognitive decline rather than temporary social withdrawal related to grief processing, and my reduced interest in maintaining extensive social coordination during my period of emotional recovery and life adjustment. My preference for simple conversation topics and familiar discussion subjects, systematic requests for clarification about complex current events, and apparent fatigue during extended social interaction, created compelling evidence of social limitation, while reinforcing assumptions about elderly social processing decline and reduced engagement capability. The sleep pattern disruptions that Bradley and Sarah documented during overnight family visits included early bedtime coordination and systematic complaints about sleep quality, nighttime restlessness, and frequent waking, and the kind of rest management challenges that suggested age-related health issues rather than grief-related sleep disturbance, and the emotional processing that often occurs during nighttime hours when distractions are minimal and loss feels most profound. My systematic preference for quiet evening activities and reduced stimulation, apparent fatigue during daytime activities and family coordination, and early morning wake-up patterns created evidence of elderly sleep management challenges, while providing perfect justification for family concern about my ability to maintain independent living and household management without comprehensive support system. The personal care routine that both Bradley and Sarah observed included systematic attention to basic hygiene coordination and grooming maintenance, apparent difficulty with complex beauty routines, and personal appearance management, and the kind of self-care coordination that suggested both physical coordination challenges and cognitive processing limitations, rather than simplified personal care choices related to grief recovery and my reduced interest in elaborate appearance maintenance during my period of social withdrawal and emotional healing. My systematic preference for simple hairstyles and basic makeup application, comfortable clothing coordination, and practical accessory choices and streamlined personal care routines created evidence of personal care simplification, while reinforcing assumptions about elderly self-care capability decline and assistance needs. The appointment coordination challenges that I displayed included apparent confusion about scheduling systems and calendar management, systematic difficulty remembering appointment times and professional meeting coordination, and the kind of administrative navigation that convinced Bradley and Sarah my professional coordination was becoming too complex for independent management, while requiring comprehensive family oversight and scheduling assistance. My systematic request for written appointment reminders and calendar coordination, apparent anxiety about scheduling complex and professional meeting management, and preference for family member accompaniment to important appointments created additional evidence of administrative dependency, while positioning family members as necessary coordination facilitators and professional communication support system. The driving coordination evidence that both Bradley and Sarah observed included systematic preference for family member transportation assistance, apparent anxiety about independent driving and traffic navigation, and the kind of mobility management that suggested both physical coordinations and cognitive processing limitations, with complex route planning, rather than temporary competence issues related to grief recovery, and my reduced comfort with independent travel during emotional vulnerability period. My systematic request for transportation assistance to medical appointments and business meetings, apparent confusion about route planning and GPS navigation system, and preference for familiar destinations and established travel patterns, created compelling evidence of mobility dependency, while reinforcing assumptions about elderly transportation capability decline and safety concern. The exercise and physical therapy coordination that characterized my grief recovery routine included systematic attention to prescribed wellness activities and therapeutic exercise program, apparent difficulty maintaining fitness schedules and physical therapy coordination without family assistance, and the kind of health maintenance coordination that suggested both physical limitation and cognitive processing challenges, with complex medical instructions and therapeutic program management. My systematic request for assistance with exercise equipment, operation, and fitness program coordination, apparent confusion about therapy progression, and wellness goal management preference for family supervision during physical activities, created compelling evidence of rehabilitation dependency, while reinforcing assumptions about elderly exercise capability limitations and safety coordination. The emergency preparedness evidence that I maintained throughout my household management included systematic attention to safety planning and crisis coordination, apparent anxiety about emergency response procedures and medical crisis management, and the kind of safety coordination that convinced Bradley and Sarah my emergency management was becoming too complex for independent coordination, while requiring comprehensive family oversight and protective assistance. The emergency contact information that I kept prominently displayed throughout the house, combined with my systematic expressions of concern about emergency communication systems and apparent difficulty understanding crisis response procedure, created evidence of elderly emergency management limitations, while providing perfect justification for comprehensive safety monitoring and family access control coordination. The communication management patterns that both Bradley and Sarah observed included systematic preference for simple, direct conversation, and straightforward information sharing. Apparent difficulty processing complex information and multi-step instructions, and the kind of information coordination that suggested cognitive processing limitations, rather than strategic communication management designed to test their patience and reveal their true priorities, while maintaining appearance of confusion and dependency. My systematic requests for repeated explanations and clarification about complex topics, apparent confusion about detailed business discussions and financial planning conversations, and preference for written information over verbal instructions, created comprehensive evidence of communication dependency, while positioning family members as necessary information processing facilitators and decision-making support system. The entertainment preferences that characterized my daily routine included systematic selection of simple television programming and familiar movie choices, basic reading materials and simplified intellectual stimulation, and the kind of leisure activity coordination that suggested cognitive capacity reduction rather than temporary grief-related concentration difficulties, and my preference for comforting, unchallenging entertainment during emotional recovery period. My systematic preference for familiar shows over new programming and complex plot developments, apparent difficulty following intricate storylines and character development, and reduced attention span for reading activities and intellectual pursuits created evidence of intellectual limitation, while reinforcing assumptions about elderly entertainment capability decline and simplification need. The financial decision-making hesitation that I displayed included systematic requests for family input about basic household purchases and routine expense management, apparent anxiety about spending decisions and budget coordination, and the kind of economic coordination that convinced Bradley and Sarah they were dealing with someone whose financial judgment was becoming compromised, while requiring family oversight and decision-making assistance. My systematic deferral to family member opinions about household purchases and routine expenses, apparent confusion about price comparisons and value assessment, and request for guidance about basic financial choices, created compelling evidence of economic decision-making limitation, while positioning family members as necessary financial oversight providers and economic judgment facilitators. The medical compliance coordination that both Bradley and Sarah documented included systematic attention to following prescribed treatment protocols and medical instruction, compliance, apparent difficulty understanding complex healthcare procedures and treatment coordination, and the kind of medical management that suggested both cognitive processing challenges and healthcare system navigation limitations, rather than strategic medical management, designed to test their genuine concern versus their eagerness to gain control over my healthcare decisions and medical financial coordination. My systematic requests for clarification about medical procedures and treatment protocols, apparent anxiety about healthcare compliance and medical decision-making, and preference for family member involvement in medical consultation and treatment planning, created additional evidence of healthcare dependency, while positioning family members as necessary medical coordination facilitators and healthcare decision-making support system. The home maintenance awareness that I displayed included apparent difficulty coordinating property upkeep and household repair management, systematic concerns about maintenance needs and property management responsibilities, and the kind of domestic coordination that suggested both physical limitations and cognitive processing challenges, with complex maintenance scheduling, rather than strategic property management, designed to test their genuine interest in my welfare versus their eagerness to gain control over valuable family real estate and property assets. My systematic requests for assistance with household maintenance decisions and repair coordination, apparent confusion about contractor management and property maintenance scheduling, and anxiety about maintenance costs and property management expenses, created evidence of domestic management limitation, while providing perfect justification for increased family involvement in property oversight and household management coordination. The legal document coordination that I occasionally requested assistance with included apparent difficulty understanding complex paperwork and legal procedure navigation, systematic confusion about legal terminology and procedural requirements, and the kind of legal management that suggested both cognitive processing challenges and institutional navigation limitations, rather than strategic legal coordination, designed to test their legal ethics and professional integrity, while evaluating their commitment to my welfare versus their personal financial interest. My systematic requests for clarification about legal documents and procedural requirements, apparent anxiety about legal compliance and institutional coordination, preference for family assistance with legal consultation and document management, created evidence of legal management dependency, while positioning family members as necessary legal oversight facilitators and institutional navigation support systems. The insurance coordination evidence that characterized my approach to coverage management and policy administration included systematic attention to insurance documentation, policy compliance, apparent confusion about coverage details and claim procedures, and the kind of insurance navigation that suggested both cognitive processing challenges and institutional coordination limitations, rather than strategic insurance management, designed to evaluate their understanding of complex financial protection systems and their commitment to maintaining my comprehensive coverage and financial security. My systematic questions about insurance coverage coordination and policy management, apparent anxiety about claim procedures and coverage compliance, and preference for family assistance with insurance communication and policy administration, created additional evidence of institutional dependency, while providing perfect justification for comprehensive financial oversight and insurance management coordination. Daily evidence that supported my vulnerable elderly persona created exactly the foundation that Bradley and Sarah needed to justify their systematic manipulation and control strategies, while building their confidence that they were dealing with a cognitively declining elderly woman. Limitations required immediate family intervention, rather than recognizing the temporary grief-related challenges that would improve with time and appropriate support. The sophisticated business intelligence that was carefully observing their behavior patterns and character development, or the extensive professional network and legal resources that would prove invaluable when comprehensive documentation of their exploitation methods became necessary for family protection and justice delivery. The systematic nature of this evidence accumulation ensured that Bradley and Sarah never questioned the authenticity of my vulnerable presentation, because every aspect of my daily life reinforced the narrative they wanted to believe, while providing multiple confirmation points for their assumptions about elderly limitation. The careful coordination of all these evidence streams created an unshakable foundation for their belief in my decline, while building their confidence in their authority and superior judgment regarding my living situation, medical coordination, and financial management, confidence that drove catastrophically misplaced when their systematic exploitation and emotional manipulation extended to the ultimate insult that would trigger the comprehensive financial education and reality check that would transform their comfortable assumptions about inheritance and family asset control into the most devastating lesson about respect, gratitude, and the dangerous consequences of underestimating the people who actually control the financial resources that make your entire lifestyle possible. The transformation of Bradley Morrison from promising young attorney to manipulative financial predator, targeting his own grieving mother, had been shaped by a toxic combination of inherited privilege, professional disappointment, and systematic exposure to family wealth without understanding the work ethic, business acumen, and personal sacrifice that Robert and I had invested over decades to build the Morrison empire that he viewed as his automatic birthright, rather than recognizing the earned achievement and continuous effort required for successful business leadership and family legacy preservation. Bradley's childhood in the affluent suburb of Westbrook Hills had provided him with every educational advantage and material comfort that family wealth could purchase, but had failed to instill the character development and work ethic that transform privilege into productive contribution rather than entitled consumption. The private schools, summer camps, tennis lessons, and European family vacations that characterized his upbringing were designed to provide cultural education and social development, but had inadvertently created psychological expectations that comfort and luxury were natural conditions rather than rewards for achievement and contribution to family business success and community welfare. The educational pathway that brought Bradley through Phillips Exeter Academy and Stanford University had been funded entirely by Morrison family businesses, but his academic performance and social development had been motivated primarily by social status considerations rather than genuine, intellectual curiosity or preparation for family business leadership responsibilities. His selection of pre-law studies at Stanford reflected his attraction to professional prestige and earning potential, rather than authentic interest in legal principles or commitment to justice and ethical practice that would prepare him for responsible asset management and family business coordination. The law school experience at Columbia University that shaped Bradley's professional identity had been funded by Morrison Capital Management's Education Trust, but his focus on intellectual property law rather than corporate governance or estate planning demonstrated his fundamental misunderstanding of the legal expertise required for family business management and succession planning coordination. His excellent grades and law review participation reflected his intellectual capability, but his career choices prioritized personal prestige over family business preparation and demonstrated limited interest in the legal frameworks that protected Morrison family wealth and business operations. The early career trajectory that established Bradley's professional reputation included positions at prestigious Manhattan law firms specializing in technology litigation and intellectual property protection for startup companies and venture capital firms. These career choices provided excellent income and professional networking opportunities, but created psychological distance from family business operations while building expertise that had limited relevance to real estate development, investment management, and the regulatory compliance requirements that characterized Morrison Industries' core business operations and strategic development initiatives. The financial independence that Bradley believed he had achieved through his legal career was actually subsidized by comprehensive family support that included mortgage assistance, vehicle leasing, private school tuition for his children, and country club memberships that were coordinated through Morrison family business accounts rather than his personal income and professional achievement. His comfortable lifestyle in Fairfield County reflected family business success rather than his own earning capability. But his systematic ignorance about these financial arrangements had created psychological conviction that his professional success was entirely self-generated and independent of family business support. The psychological profile that emerged through Bradley's adult development revealed a character structure built on unexamined privilege, professional entitlement, and systematic rationalization of family resource consumption, without corresponding contribution to family business operations or recognition of the ongoing effort required to maintain the wealth that supported his lifestyle and professional choices. His growing assumption that family assets were essentially his inheritance rather than earned property, requiring continued management and strategic development, demonstrated fundamental misunderstanding of wealth creation and business continuity requirements. The marriage to Sarah Patterson, daughter of a successful Hartford physician, had reinforced Bradley's sense of social positioning and professional achievement, while adding another layer of expense and lifestyle expectation that required continued family financial support to maintain their combined social status and material comfort expectations. Sarah's background in upper-middle-class medical family wealth had provided her with appreciation for professional success and financial security, but had not prepared her for the complexity and responsibility associated with managing substantial family business operations and community leadership obligations. The children's education and lifestyle coordination that Bradley and Sarah maintained reflected their commitment to providing the same privileged upbringing they had enjoyed, but their systematic reliance on family business resources to fund private school tuition, summer camp experiences, and extracurricular activities demonstrated continued dependence on Morrison family wealth, rather than developing independent financial capability and teaching their children about the work ethic and character development required for productive contribution to family legacy and community welfare. The entrepreneurial venture that Bradley had launched with Cloud Vault Solutions represented his attempt to establish independent financial success and professional achievement outside the Morrison family business empire, but his systematic reliance on family funding for startup capital, ongoing operational support, and personal expense coordination revealed continued dependence on family resources while maintaining the psychological fiction of independent business leadership and entrepreneurial achievement. The company's focus on cybersecurity and data management reflected current technology trends rather than strategic analysis of market opportunities and long-term business development potential. The business plan that Bradley had developed for CloudVault included ambitious growth projections and market analysis that reflected his legal training and intellectual capability, but demonstrated limited understanding of operational management, cash flow coordination, and the customer service excellence required for sustainable business success in competitive technology markets. His systematic focus on raising capital and building professional networks, rather than developing core competencies and profitable operations, revealed fundamental misunderstanding of business development principles and sustainable growth strategies. The financial management approach that Brad employed for CloudVault operations included systematic reliance on external funding, rather than developing internal revenue generation and profit optimization that would create sustainable business operations, independent of continuous capital injection and family financial support. His monthly expense coordination included premium office space in Stanford's financial district, comprehensive employee benefit packages, and marketing expenses that reflected his desire to project success rather than building fundamental business capability and competitive advantage. The employee management philosophy that Bradley implemented at CloudVault emphasized workplace culture and employee satisfaction, rather than performance accountability and productivity optimization that would generate the revenue and profit margins necessary for sustainable operations and competitive positioning in demanding technology markets. His systematic focus on creating attractive working conditions, rather than developing operational excellence and customer satisfaction, demonstrated limited understanding of business leadership requirements and market competition dynamics. The client development strategy that Bradley pursued for CloudVault included networking through his professional legal connections and family social relationships, rather than systematic market analysis and competitive positioning that would identify genuine customer needs and develop service capabilities, provided superior value compared to established competitors in cybersecurity and data management services. His reliance on personal relationships rather than business merit for customer acquisition created fundamental vulnerability to market changes and competitive pressure. The financial pressure that gradually overwhelmed Bradley's entrepreneurial confidence included mounting operational expenses that exceeded revenue generation, employee salary obligations that required continuous cash flow management, and marketing costs that failed to generate proportional customer acquisition and revenue growth. The systematic consumption of startup capital, without corresponding business development and profitability achievement, created increasing desperation that gradually compromised his judgment and ethical standards regarding family relationship exploitation and asset manipulation strategy. The rationalization process that enabled Bradley to justify manipulation of his grieving mother included systematic reframing of family asset seizure as caring intervention, strategic presentation of his business failure as temporary setback requiring family supporting comprehensive psychological justification that positioned his financial desperation as family obligation, rather than recognizing the personal responsibility and ethical accountability that should govern family relationships and business coordination. His growing conviction that family wealth was essentially his property created moral flexibility that eliminated ethical restraints while building justification for increasingly aggressive manipulation and control strategy. The psychological justification system that Bradley developed for elder manipulation included systematic emphasis on my apparent cognitive decline and business management incapacity, strategic presentation of his superior education and professional expertise as beneficial family leadership, and comprehensive rationalization that positioned asset transfer as protective intervention, rather than recognizing the exploitation and abuse that characterized his systematic campaign to gain control over family wealth and business operations through emotional manipulation and legal maneuvering. The professional network that Bradley had cultivated within Connecticut's legal and business community included relationships with attorneys, financial advisors, and business consultants who shared his assumptions about inheritance entitlement and family wealth transfer rather than understanding the ethical obligations and fiduciary responsibilities that govern family business succession and estate management. His systematic coordination with David Chen and other professional service providers created institutional enablement for his manipulation strategy, while providing appearance of legitimate planning and professional oversight. The legal strategy that Bradley had developed for gaining control over Morrison family assets included systematic research of guardianship procedures, power of attorney arrangement, and estate planning mechanisms that would position him as financial decision-maker and asset manager, while eliminating my ability to resist or seek alternative solutions that might preserve family business continuity under competent management. His use of professional legal expertise for family exploitation, rather than protection, demonstrated fundamental corruption of his legal education and professional ethical obligation. The timeline pressure that drove Bradley's increasingly aggressive manipulation tactics included cloud vaults mounting financial obligations, employee salary requirements that demanded immediate cash flow solutions, and creditor pressure that threatened both business operations and his personal financial security. The systematic escalation of family asset seizure strategies reflected growing desperation rather than careful planning, creating vulnerability to legal challenge and family relationship destruction that demonstrated poor judgment and limited strategic thinking capability. The family relationship dynamics that Bradley exploited included systematic manipulation of my grief and apparent vulnerability, strategic coordination with Sarah to present unified family pressure, and comprehensive emotional exploitation that positioned elder abuse as caring intervention while eliminating my autonomy and decision-making authority through psychological manipulation and professional intimidation. His willingness to exploit family tragedy and emotional vulnerability for personal financial gain revealed fundamental character corruption and moral bankruptcy that disqualified him from family business leadership regardless of bloodline relationship or inheritance expectation. The financial projection modeling that Bradley and David Chen had developed for Morrison family asset management included optimistic assumptions about business performance improvement under his leadership, systematic underestimation of management complexity and regulatory requirement, and comprehensive ignorance about client relationships and operational expertise that Robert and I had developed over decades of hands-on business leadership and market development. Their projections reflected theoretical knowledge rather than practical experience, creating unrealistic expectations and dangerous overconfidence about their management capability. The succession planning assumptions that Bradley had developed included automatic inheritance of family business control, immediate access to substantial family wealth, and systematic entitlement to assets that he had never helped build or maintain, while pursuing independent career goals and lifestyle choices that prioritized personal satisfaction over family business contribution and community responsibility. His expectations reflected cultural assumptions about inheritance, rather than understanding the performance requirements and character assessment that responsible family business transfer requires for long-term success and legacy preservation. The risk assessment blindness that characterized Bradley's approach to family asset management included systematic ignorance about market volatility and competitive pressure that required ongoing strategic adaptation, comprehensive underestimation of regulatory compliance and legal liability that demanded specialized expertise and continuous attention, and fundamental misunderstanding of client relationship management and operational excellence that formed the foundation of Morrison business success and long-term profitability.
The character development trajectory that had brought Bradley to this point of family exploitation included systematic erosion of ethical standards under financial pressure, progressive rationalization of manipulation tactics as justified family intervention, and comprehensive moral flexibility that enabled elder abuse while maintaining self-image as caring son and responsible family member. His psychological journey from privileged heir to financial predator demonstrated the corruption that can result from unearned wealth and entitled expectations without corresponding character development and ethical foundation. The social positioning strategy that Bradley employed throughout his manipulation campaign included systematic presentation of family intervention as community responsibility, strategic coordination with professional service providers to create appearance of legitimate plan, and comprehensive image management that concealed his financial desperation while projecting competent family leadership and protective concern for elderly parent welfare. His sophisticated understanding of social perception and professional reputation management enabled systematic deception while building community support for his asset seizure strategy. The ultimate irony that Bradley remained completely unaware of was that every aspect of his comfortable lifestyle, professional reputation, and business operation was dependent on the Morrison family businesses that he was so eager to seize control of and restructure according to his inexperienced judgment and self-serving priorities. His systematic ignorance about actual asset ownership, business operational requirements, and professional expertise necessary for successful wealth management had created perfect conditions for the most comprehensive financial education and reality check that any entitled heir had ever received about the difference between inheritance expectations and earned authority over family business operations and community leadership responsibility. The psychological profile that emerged from this comprehensive character analysis revealed an individual whose privileged upbringing and professional achievement had created dangerous overconfidence about his capabilities, while systematic family support had prevented development of the humility, work ethic, and ethical foundation necessary for responsible family business leadership and community contribution. His willingness to exploit family tragedy and emotional vulnerability for personal financial gain demonstrated character corruption that required comprehensive correction and reality adjustment before any consideration of family asset transfer or business succession coordination could be appropriate or safe for family legacy preservation and community welfare. The incident that would ultimately transform Bradley's comfortable assumptions about inheritance entitlement into the most comprehensive financial reality check that any ungrateful heir had ever received occurred on a bitter December morning when he arrived at the Westbrook Hills estate with foreclosure notices, eviction paper, and the unthinkable demand that would reveal his true character while triggering 45 years of business expertise and legal connections that would systematically destroy his entitled existence and teach him the difference between inherited privilege and earned authority. Bradley's arrival that morning carried an air of finality and desperation that immediately indicated something had changed in his approach to family asset acquisition. His usual BMW was replaced by a rental car, his typically impeccable appearance showed signs of stress and sleepless nights, and his body language conveyed the kind of urgent anxiety that suggested his financial situation had deteriorated beyond the point where polite manipulation and gradual pressure would be sufficient to resolve his mounting obligations and creditor demands. Sarah accompanied him, but her demeanor lacked the confident authority she had displayed during their previous intervention meetings. Her expensive designer clothing was replaced by more modest attire, her jewelry was noticeably absent, and her nervous energy suggested that their financial circumstances had deteriorated to the point where maintaining appearances was becoming challenging, while their lifestyle expectations collided with the reality of Bradley's business failure and mounting personal debt obligation. "Mom," Bradley began, his voice carrying none of the patronizing patience that had characterized our previous family meetings. "We need to discuss your situation immediately." The nursing home placement can't wait any longer, and the business transfers need to happen this week. CloudVault is facing immediate cash flow problems, and I need access to family assets to prevent total business collapse and personal financial catastrophe. The abandonment of pretense in Bradley's communication revealed the desperation that had finally overwhelmed his manipulation strategy. Direct demand for immediate asset access without the careful psychological preparation and emotional manipulation that had characterized previous family meetings indicated that external pressures had eliminated his ability to maintain the caring son facade while pursuing systematic exploitation. My apparent vulnerability and cognitive limitation.
Sarah opened her purse and produced a thick folder of legal documents, spreading foreclosure notices, creditor demands, and bankruptcy warnings across my coffee table with trembling hands that revealed the stress and anxiety that had consumed their previously comfortable lifestyle and social positioning. Kate, we're facing financial emergencies that require immediate family intervention. Bradley's business creditors are demanding payment. Our mortgage company has initiated foreclosure proceedings, and we need to liquidate family assets to prevent total financial collapse. The systematic revelation of their financial catastrophe provided comprehensive evidence of Bradley's business management capabilities, and the actual results of his entrepreneurial expertise, rather than the optimistic projections and professional competence he had claimed during his manipulation campaign. The foreclosure notices on properties that I actually owned through Morrison Family Business Holdings, combined with creditor demands for business loans that had been guaranteed by family assets without my knowledge, created a complex web of financial obligation and legal liability that demonstrated his fundamental dishonesty and systematic betrayal of family trust. The situation is critical, Bradley continued, his voice taking on the harsh edge of someone whose options had been systematically eliminated by poor decisions and mounting consequences. The nursing home has an immediate opening, and we've arranged for professional moving services to transition you this weekend. The business asset transfers need to be completed by Friday to meet creditor demands and prevent legal action that could affect the entire family's financial position. The timeline pressure that Bradley created through his crisis presentation was designed to prevent me from seeking independent legal counsel or conducting thorough evaluation of their demands and legal obligations. His emphasis on protecting the entire family's financial position, particularly manipulative since the creditor obligations and business failures were entirely the result of his decisions and management, rather than any family business problems or financial difficulties affecting Morrison Industries' operations or profitability. I maintained my confused and overwhelmed persona while observing every detail of their desperation and systematic planning for asset seizure. My apparent compliance with their timeline and apparent gratitude for their help during this crisis reinforced their confidence that their manipulation had been successful while buying me time to coordinate my own strategic response to their exploitation and systematic betrayal of family trust and obligation. But what Bradley could never have anticipated was that his final demand would reveal character corruption so profound that it would trigger comprehensive justice delivery rather than continued manipulation tolerance. The words dead weight hung in the air like a physical blow, revealing character corruption so complete and disrespect so profound that it immediately activated every business instinct and protective capability I had developed over 45 years of successful family enterprise management and community leadership. The casual cruelty of his language, combined with his systematic dismissal of my contributions to family wealth creation, and his entitled assumption that my grief and apparent vulnerability created obligation to fund his business failure, crossed every ethical boundary and family loyalty expectation that should govern relationships between adult children and their parents. Sarah nodded in agreement, her voice adding psychological pressure designed to make resistance appear selfish and irresponsible. Kate, Bradley's right. You're holding everyone back by clinging to this house and pretending you can still manage business responsibilities that are clearly beyond your current capability. The nursing home placement will give you the care you need, while allowing the family to move forward with realistic financial planning and asset management. The systematic dehumanization that characterized their approach to family relationship management revealed corruption that extended beyond financial desperation into fundamental character failure and moral bankruptcy that disqualified them from any consideration for family asset inheritance or business succession, regardless of bloodline relationships or previous family support and educational investment. The moment had arrived for the most comprehensive education about respect, gratitude, and family obligation that any entitled heirs had ever received. I stood from my chair with the kind of purposeful authority that I hadn't displayed during months of careful observation and character assessment. My posture straightened, my voice became clear and commanding, my demeanor transformed from confused elderly widow to the CEO and majority shareholder, who had spent decades building and protecting the Morrison family empire that Bradley was so eager to destroy through his incompetence and entitlement. Bradley, my voice carrying the authority that had commanded respect in boardrooms and business negotiations throughout my career. I think it's time you learned exactly who you've been trying to manipulate and what you've actually been demanding access to through your systematic exploitation of my grief and apparent vulnerability. The confusion that immediately appeared on both Bradley's and Sarah's faces indicated that they had become so invested in their narrative of my cognitive decline that they were genuinely surprised by my sudden display of competence and authority. Their systematic assumptions about elderly limitation and dependency had prevented them from recognizing the business intelligence that had been carefully observing and documenting their character development throughout our family interactions. What I'm about to tell you, I continued, walking to my desk and retrieving a thick folder of business documents and legal papers, will fundamentally change your understanding of family asset ownership, business control, and the financial consequences of your systematic disrespect and manipulation attempt. First, I said, opening the folder and spreading financial documents across the coffee table with systematic precision, let me clarify exactly who owns what in this family. Morrison Industries, which you assume will become your inheritance, is a $150 million real estate empire that I built with your father over 30 years of strategic planning and market development. Morrison Capital Management controls over $200 million in investment assets that I personally manage through relationships with clients who trust my judgment and expertise. Morrison Family Holdings owns everything else, including the house you're demanding I sell, the properties you consider your assets, and the business investments that have funded your entire adult lifestyle. The systematic revelation of actual business ownership and asset control created immediate recognition that their manipulation strategy had been based on fundamentally incorrect assumptions about family wealth structure and decision-making authority. Bradley's growing pallor and Sarah's shocked silence indicated that they were beginning to understand the magnitude of their miscalculation and the potential consequences of their systematic exploitation attempt. Second, I continued, producing additional documents that detailed their financial dependence on family business operations, let me explain exactly how your comfortable lifestyle has been funded throughout your adult life. Cloud Vault Solutions, the business you've been running into the ground, is 78% owned by Morrison Capital Management through our venture investment division. The $2.3 million you received for startup funding wasn't family support, it was business investment that gave us controlling interest in your company and complete authority over its operational decisions and strategic direction. The revelation that I owned controlling interest in Bradley's business created immediate understanding that his independent entrepreneurship had actually been family-funded venture capital investment, subject to performance requirements and management oversight, that he had systematically ignored, while pursuing strategies that prioritized personal expense over business development and profitability achievement. The house you live in, I continued, is owned by Morrison Family Holdings and provided to you through a lease agreement that waives $8,000 monthly rent as family support. Your vacation property is similarly owned by our family business with comparable market value rental waived as family accommodation. Your mortgage payments go to Morrison Capital Management, which purchased your loans from the originating banks, to provide favorable terms while maintaining control over property financing and ownership structure. The comprehensive revelation of their housing situation created recognition. Their apparent real estate ownership was actually family business accommodation that could be terminated at any time through standard lease agreement procedures and mortgage acceleration clauses that I had maintained throughout their occupancy period. Your children's private school tuition, I continued systematically, is funded through Morrison Industries Education Trust. Your country club membership is a corporate benefit provided through our business entertainment budget. Your family vacations are processed through our client entertainment accounts. The luxury vehicles you drive are leased through our corporate fleet management system. Even your credit cards are corporate accounts tied to Morrison Family Holdings with unlimited spending capability that I review monthly to understand your lifestyle patterns and financial priorities. The systematic documentation of their complete financial dependence on family business operations created comprehensive understanding that their comfortable lifestyle was entirely supported by Morrison family wealth rather than Bradley's professional achievement or independent earning capability. Sarah's shocked whisper of "How is that possible?" revealed the depth of their ignorance about family financial structure and their systematic assumptions about independent lifestyle achievement, without understanding the business operations and family coordination that made their comfort and security possible. "It's possible," I replied, "because you've never bothered to understand where the money comes from. You've lived your entire adult lives assuming that family wealth exists for your convenience without recognizing the work ethic, business expertise, and strategic planning required to create and maintain the resources that support your lifestyle expectations and financial security." Bradley's attempt to recover his composure and assert authority over family business decisions was immediately countered by the most systematic financial education that any entitled heir had ever received about the difference between inheritance expectations and actual earned control over family assets and business operations. "Now that you understand who actually owns what," I said, returning to my desk and retrieving additional legal documents, "let me explain the immediate consequences of your systematic manipulation attempts and elder abuse strategy." The legal documents that I spread across the coffee table included lease termination notices, mortgage acceleration demands, corporate credit card cancellation orders, and comprehensive financial audit requirements that would immediately eliminate every aspect of their comfortable lifestyle while exposing the full extent of their dependence on family business support and financial subsidy. Effective immediately, I announced with the authority that had negotiated complex business deals and managed multi-million-dollar transactions throughout my career, your lease on the Fairfield County house is terminated with 30 days' notice as provided in the agreement you signed, but apparently never read. The mortgage acceleration clause on your vacation property has been triggered, requiring immediate full payment of outstanding principal and interest obligations within 60 days. Your corporate credit cards, I continued, are canceled effective immediately along with all family business account access and financial coordination support. Your children's private school tuition funding will be discontinued at the end of this academic term, requiring you to develop independent financial resources for educational expenses and extracurricular activity coordination. The systematic elimination of financial support created immediate pressure that would require Bradley and Sarah to develop independent earning capability and lifestyle coordination without family business subsidy or financial. Their reaction of shocked protest and desperate bargaining revealed their complete dependence on family resources, while demonstrating their fundamental ignorance about independent financial management and expense coordination requirements. Cloud Vault Solutions, I announced, producing additional legal documents that detailed business ownership and management authority, will be immediately restructured under Morrison Capital Management oversight with new operational leadership and strategic direction designed to achieve profitability and sustainable business development rather than continued cash consumption and expense generation without corresponding revenue achievement. The business management termination eliminated Bradley's entrepreneurial authority, while providing comprehensive evidence of his actual management capabilities and decision-making judgment. His systematic failure to achieve profitability despite substantial family investment and ongoing financial support demonstrated professional incompetence, that disqualified him from family business leadership regardless of educational credentials or inheritance expectations. The country club membership, corporate vehicle leases, and all family business benefits, I continued, are terminated immediately, requiring you to develop independent resources for lifestyle maintenance and social positioning that you've taken for granted throughout your adult lives, without recognizing the business success and financial coordination that made such a combination possible. Sarah's desperate plea about their children's welfare and social stability revealed her fundamental misunderstanding of family obligation and resource stewardship. Her assumption that family wealth existed to support their lifestyle choices without corresponding contribution or appreciation demonstrated character development that prioritized consumption over contribution, while expecting permanent financial support without accountability or performance requirement. But that's not all, I continued, retrieving my phone and preparing to make the calls that would transform their local financial difficulties into comprehensive professional and social consequences that reflected the full scope of their manipulation attempts and character corruption. My first call, I announced, is to James Patterson, our family business manager, who will implement immediate financial audits and legal compliance reviews for all Morrison family business operations, to ensure complete separation from your obligations and potential liability exposure. James Patterson's immediate availability and comprehensive understanding of family business protection strategies reflected the professional relationships and institutional coordination that I had maintained throughout my apparent withdrawal from active business management. His expertise in crisis management and legal liability protection would ensure that Bradley's business failures and creditor obligations could not affect Morrison family business operations or asset security. My second call, I continue, is to Margaret Sullivan, at Goldman Sachs Private Wealth Management, who will coordinate immediate asset protection strategies and legal consultation for comprehensive estate planning review and succession planning modification, based on demonstrated character development and family loyalty assessment. The involvement of institutional wealth management and estate planning expertise created immediate recognition that family asset protection extended far beyond their local manipulation strategy, while including professional resources and legal coordination that could prevent any future exploitation attempts or inheritance challenges that might threaten family business continuity and asset security. My third call, I announced, is to District Attorney Rebecca Chen, who specializes in elder abuse prosecution and financial exploitation cases involving family members who target vulnerable elderly individuals for systematic manipulation and asset seizure through emotional abuse and legal intimidation. The threat of criminal prosecution for elder abuse created immediate understanding that their manipulation strategy constituted criminal behavior rather than family disagreement, with potential legal consequences that included felony charges, professional license revocation, and criminal penalties that would affect their ability to practice law or maintain professional reputation and social standing. Bradley's desperate attempt to characterize their behavior as family intervention and caring concern was immediately countered by comprehensive documentation of their systematic manipulation, emotional abuse, and financial exploitation that had been carefully recorded throughout their campaign to gain control over family assets through elder abuse and legal intimidation, rather than earning authority through character development and business contribution. I have detailed records, I explained, producing additional documentation folders of every conversation, every manipulation attempt, and every systematic effort to exploit my grief and apparent vulnerability for personal financial gain. The legal evidence includes recorded conversations, financial transaction analysis, and comprehensive documentation of your systematic campaign to seize family assets through elder abuse and emotional manipulation. Beyond the immediate financial and legal consequences, I continued, your behavior requires community notification and professional accountability that reflects the full scope of your character corruption and systematic exploitation of family tragedy for personal financial gain. The community accountability component of my justice strategy included notification of their professional associations, social organizations, and business networks about their systematic elder abuse and financial exploitation that demonstrated character corruption, incompatible with professional practice and community leadership responsibilities. Your law firm partnership will receive comprehensive documentation of your systematic manipulation and elder abuse attempts, along with evidence of your business management failures and professional ethical violations that raise questions about your judgment and integrity in client representation and professional responsibility coordination. The professional consequences that would result from law firm notification included potential partnership termination, professional license review, and comprehensive reputation damage that would affect Bradley's ability to maintain legal practice and professional income, independent of family business support and financial accommodation. The Country Club Board of Directors, will receive detailed information about your systematic financial exploitation and character corruption, along with documentation of your fraudulent use of family business resources for personal expense and lifestyle maintenance, without authorization or appropriate financial coordination. Social consequences that would result from Country Club notification included membership termination and comprehensive social ostracism that would affect their ability to maintain community relationships and social positioning that had been based on assumed family wealth and professional reputation, rather than actual character development and community contribution. Your children's private school administration, I added, will receive appropriate notification about the termination of tuition funding, along with information about your systematic exploitation of elderly family members and character issues that make continued family business support inappropriate and potentially enabling for future elder abuse and financial manipulation. The educational consequences created immediate pressure for independent financial resource development, while ensuring that their children would understand the importance of respect for elderly family members and appropriate gratitude for educational opportunities that require family sacrifice and business success rather than entitled consumption of resources without appreciation or contribution. Bradley, I concluded, my voice carrying the authority and disappointment of someone who had spent decades building family wealth while hoping for worthy heirs who would continue the legacy of hard work, community contribution, and family loyalty that Robert and I had established throughout our business careers and family development. You called me dead weight and demanded that I move to a nursing home so you could sell my house to fund your failing business. You systematically exploited my grief and apparent vulnerability to seize control over family assets that you had never earned or contributed to building. The systematic recitation of his manipulation strategy and character corruption provided comprehensive evidence of moral bankruptcy, disqualified him from family business leadership, while demonstrating the profound disrespect and entitlement that had motivated his exploitation attempts and elder abuse coordination. What you never understood, I continued, is that respect for elderly family members isn't just morally required, it's practically essential when you don't actually know who controls the financial resources that make your entire lifestyle possible. Your systematic assumptions about my cognitive decline and business incapacity prevented you from recognizing that you were attempting to manipulate someone whose business expertise and professional network could systematically destroy every aspect of your comfortable existence. The educational component of my justice delivery included comprehensive explanation of the relationship between character development and family business succession, along with clear documentation of the performance requirements and ethical standards that govern inheritance, consideration, and asset transfer authorization in responsible family wealth management and legacy preservation coordination. The most satisfying aspect of this education, I concluded, isn't just the immediate consequences you'll face for your systematic manipulation and elder abuse. It's knowing that you'll finally learn the difference between inherited privilege and earned authority, between entitled consumption and productive contribution, and between family wealth and personal achievement. Sarah's tearful plea for consideration of their children's welfare was met with systematic explanation of the educational value that would result from their parents learning appropriate respect for elderly family members and developing independent financial capability rather than continued dependence on family business resources and accommodation that enabled entitled behavior and character corruption. Your children, I explained, will benefit enormously from seeing their parents develop work ethic and independent capability rather than continuing to model entitled consumption of family resources without appreciation or contribution. They'll learn the importance of respect for elderly wisdom and the value of earning, rather than expecting family support and financial accommodation. The comprehensive consequences that Bradley and Sarah faced included immediate housing insecurity, financial crisis management, and the necessity of developing independent earning capability and lifestyle coordination, without family business support or accommodation. Their comfortable assumptions about inheritance entitlement and automatic family support collided with the reality of earning capability requirements and independent financial management that they had never developed during their years of family-subsidized lifestyle and professional choices. Bradley's final attempt to negotiate reduced consequences and gradual transition timing was met with the same inflexibility and authority that had built Morrison Industries into Connecticut's premier real estate development company. His systematic manipulation and elder abuse had eliminated any consideration for his comfort or convenience, while creating obligation for immediate consequences that reflected the severity of his character corruption and systematic betrayal of family trust and obligation. "The papers you brought today," I announced, gathering their foreclosure notices and creditor demands, "represent your problems, not mine. CloudVault's financial obligations are your responsibility to resolve through independent resources and professional capability, rather than family asset seizure and elder exploitation. Your business failures don't create family emergency, they create personal accountability and learning opportunities about the difference between entrepreneurial dreams and business reality." The systematic rejection of their crisis presentation and financial emergency claims provide comprehensive education about personal responsibility and consequence management, while eliminating their ability to continue exploiting family resources for business failure recovery and lifestyle maintenance without accountability or performance requirements. "Remember this lesson," I concluded, "the next time you consider who might be dead weight in this family. Respect and protect elderly family members, not just because it's morally right, but because you never know when the vulnerable elderly person you're exploiting might actually possess the professional expertise and institutional connections necessary to transform your entitled existence into comprehensive accountability and justice delivery." The moral lesson that concluded by justice delivery provided educational value that extended beyond immediate consequences to include fundamental character development requirements and ethical standards that govern family relationships and community responsibility, rather than entitled consumption and exploitation of family resources and elderly vulnerability. 6 months later, Bradley was working as an associate attorney at a small Hartford law firm, while Sarah managed a part-time retail position to help support their dramatically reduced lifestyle in a modest apartment complex. Their children had adapted well to public school education, while learning valuable lessons about work ethic and financial responsibility that their previous privileged circumstances had prevented them from developing. CloudVault Solutions, under professional management and strategic restructuring, had achieved profitability and market positioning that demonstrated the business potential that Bradley's incompetence and expense management had prevented from realization. The successful business development provided comprehensive evidence of management capability requirements, while generating returns that justified Morrison Capital's investment strategy and business development expertise. The ultimate satisfaction came not from their financial difficulties or lifestyle reduction, but from knowing that they had finally learned the difference between inheritance expectations and earned authority, between family accommodation and personal achievement, and between entitled consumption and productive contribution to family legacy and community welfare.
And every time I reviewed Morrison Industries' quarterly profits, were coordinated with our investment client, I remembered Bradley's shocked expression when he realized exactly who he had called dead weight and tried to manipulate, a reminder that respect for elderly wisdom and gratitude for family support aren't just moral obligations, but practical necessities when you don't actually understand who controls the resources that make your life possible. What would you do if family members called you dead weight and tried to seize your assets? How can we better protect elderly family members from exploitation while teaching younger generations about respect and gratitude? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you found this family justice story satisfying, smash that subscribe button, because next week I'm sharing how a helpless senior citizen, being pressured to sign over her property, turned out to be a retired federal prosecutor, and what happened when her ungrateful relatives discovered she'd been building a legal case against them for months.